Texans are going to be shopping for interior defensive linemen and other positions. Tandre Sweat made a lot of sense. Makes sense, too. A lot of UT fans probably listen to this show. Well, here's the news from yesterday, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Former Texas football player Tandre Sweat was booked into Travis County Jail on Sunday and charged with driving while intoxicated, according to jail records. Records show Sweat, 22 years old, was arrested by the Austin Police Department and booked into the jail at 2:12 p.m. Sunday while driving while intoxicated is a Class B misdemeanor. Posted bond was released. The video has surfaced of him leaving the Travis County Jail. He's got the towel over the head game pretty solid right now, I would say.
He does, yeah. He walked out. I got to say, I couldn't not evaluate his physique as he walked out wearing street clothes because I've only ever seen him mostly in athletic gear or a football uniform.
Give it to us.
He put together pretty damn well for a 360-pound dude.
I agree.
Which is what's so intriguing about this guy. He should have moved.
Could Tandre Sweat benefit from the perp walk video that surfaced after his DWI arrest?
I got to tell you, it looked like he worked out in prison. It looked like he'd been doing his workouts. He's got those jail muscles. The question is, okay, a lot of times guys, they get out of jail and they kind of deflate. Yeah. So I don't know if that 4 hours of jail time
picturing the little holding cell they have at the Travis County Jail, having like 3 tiny dumbbells in it or something like that.
I just, listen, Sean, I always enjoy these things when immediately something happens and the overwhelming sentiment immediately on social media is, well, he'll never work again.
Right.
Yep, that's it for him. 7th-round pick at best. When just last year there was a defensive lineman who, and I'm not trying to make light of this, he killed 2 people while driving and ended up getting drafted in the 1st round still. And I don't know if Jalen Carter maybe, where he would have gotten drafted overall. Maybe he ends up dropping down several spots in the 1st round. But it certainly wasn't the end of the world for him.
I think 9th. He was picked 9th overall. 10, yeah.
And there were questions about, so just like him, just like Jalen Carter, who ended up being 2nd in the defensive rookie of the year.
Really good player.
Voting.
Yep.
There were questions about his maturity, questions about just how committed he was, all that, just as there are with Tandre Sweat. Yeah. So I don't know how much it's going to hurt him. I think the fact that people were already worried about his weight and that, the discipline to control it with diet, they probably also now really wonder about his discipline to control himself in general with just a couple weeks before the draft getting into this issue. Now, it's all alleged at this point. Remember, Ed Oliver was arrested for DUI. I can't remember if it was before the draft or before this. It was before the draft, I believe.
I'm not sure.
And the charge ended up being dismissed.
Yeah.
And that was like the charge was dismissed, but there were some weird circumstances still. But it obviously it does happen. I think that this could very well knock Tandre Sweat. I would say out of some teams that might have been like looking at him as like, you know what, I'd like to take a swing on him in the 2nd round. It might cause a few teams to say, all right, no, this guy's 3rd round. If we're gonna take a chance on this guy, I don't want to risk a 2nd round.
I think this is one of those things, honestly, Seth, just because of the sheer stupidity of it and because of the calling into question, what's this guy's discipline level? Because reportedly, Dane Brugler of The Athletic, he tweeted yesterday that Sweat had been very upfront about his partying days when he was younger with teams, and that he said that was all in the past. This is proof that at least he's still out running around on Sunday afternoons. What it is, we'll see. I think this is one of those things that Tandre Sweat is a level of prospect where there might be some things like he's just off of our big board. We just don't want to mess with it. Because you start to dip to a certain point, he's already thought to be a day 2 guy. You start to dip to a certain point. All right, is this guy worth taking in the 5th round? Like, am I going to have a headache for a guy taking the 5th round of this draft? Is he worth that? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing for me. Like, there's certain, I don't want to say there's levels of stupidity. I mean, there are levels of stupidity. And again, like comparing it to Jalen Carter is a dicey thing because people passed away and that whole thing. What's dumb about this is, dude, the finish line's in sight. Yeah. The draft is 3 weeks away. Watch Netflix for 3 weeks and go get drafted. What are you doing running around on a Sunday afternoon, allegedly, driving after you've had something to drink? Like, what are you, like, you can see the finish line from here. It's 2 weeks away.
No, and this is where I honestly, and I'm not just saying it as a technicality with the allegedly without having further details. I mean, sometimes people will just refuse to take the breathalyzer or what have you for whatever reason if they've had just one beer, or refuse to do the sobriety test. So I don't know exactly what the details are. I'd imagine now on a business day, we'll find out a little bit more of that. But yeah, like just even putting yourself in those circumstances when he's like, this is the thing that concerns me about Tandre Sweat. Two things. One is that at the combine, he just flat out said, no, I like this body weight, 360 pounds. So I don't know how he says that to teams that might say, hey, we want you to weigh 340. And he's already said, like, nah, this is a good body weight for me. Because I'll tell you, honestly, it's not a good body weight for him. If he wanted to be a first-round pick, there are just too many times on film where, man, he destroys people when he's not tired. But when he's tired, he looks like Paul Blart trying to chase a perp.
Yeah.
You know, like he'll be like 5-6 feet away from a ball carrier and he just can't move.
Yeah.
So his endurance is an issue. And that alone, even with or without the DUI, is going to keep him out of the first round. Because there's some guys, like Vince Wilfork is a huge dude. Vince Wilfork went sideline to sideline. He was a menace. Like, he was absurdly good for a big man running sideline to sideline. Yep. You know, Gilbert Brown back in the day, not so much. But Gilbert Brown probably would get drafted later today because there's not a room for old school run stuffers the way there used to be.
Yep.
Vita Vea is a good example of a guy. Vita Vea plays his ass off, you know, and I think it's a shame because Tandre Sweat has that same ability. It's just he needs to be a little bit lighter, and it doesn't seem like he's committed to keeping his body pure, especially if I'm basing that just on the food, not to mention this.
I wonder what Tandre Sweat, like, I don't know who Tandre Sweat's agent is. I don't know who represents him. Like, I do wonder, I mean, we are down to, like, the draft is 2 weeks from this Thursday. The date Tandre Sweat would get drafted is 2 weeks from this Friday, if at best, I think, even before this, probably. But I wonder, there's one thing, like, for Jalen Carter and his representation to do damage control on something that happened in January or February. You've got the whole draft season to do it, and he's a prospect that the balance sheet is going to skew towards him on is he worth the trouble than Tandre Sweat. I just wonder, like, what sort of damage control you go into. Like, you're an agent and you're calling up front offices where Tandre Sweat has had sit-down interviews or sit-down meetings at the combine and stuff. And if I'm a GM or a personnel guy, I'm like, bro, we're working on so many other things, and your client, like Jalen Carter's one thing. He might have been the best player in that draft, you know, or close to it.
Yeah.
You know, Tandre Sweat, like Tandre Sweat's people are on hold. Tell him we'll get back to him. We've already crossed him off of our big, but just an insanely stupid thing. He seems like a nice kid, you know, from all the interviews and everything. Just so stupid.
I'm depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
I'm like, honestly, Sean, people like it's depending on the circumstances. All we know at this point was that he was arrested. Is it profoundly stupid if he was if it turns out to be just a complete whatever? He was advised. Maybe he called his agent up and he said, no, don't take the sobriety test or what have you.
Maybe.
And it turns out
that's
there was
fair.
That's
That's fair. Okay, if I would say even if he's out drinking on a Sunday afternoon, it's pretty dumb. Like 3 weeks before the draft, when part of your balance sheet, a red X against you, is your partying days from back when you were a younger player. You know what I mean? Like, stay home, watch the women's final on a Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, if he was having if he had a mimosa at brunch or something, I
think that's mildly stupid. Am I crazy? That would knock him off my board. A mimosa at brunch.
Again, no, but you're painting an image of him again, like without knowing any details.
I said
you're painting an image. Right, I know, but you're painting an image of a guy who's out boozing hardcore on a Sunday or something.
Right.
Where we just don't know that. Like, I don't feel comfortable calling him stupid yet. I will in the future.
Okay, let me make clear one thing. I'm not calling him stupid. I'm saying he did a stupid thing.
Yeah. He's a big guy. Like, I think this would be interesting because this is what happens.
Which makes me think he had to be drinking something to have even suspicion.
For him to have that much.
360 pounds. He had to have had something to drink for there to be suspicion.
Okay, so the Ed